Wow.
Yeah.
And
like onions, tomatoes, and mustard, and pickles on it. It has the texture.
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
That's Tim might, if that's he's looking for the texture. It's not a hamburger. It's not meat.
No.
But it has the texture.
And the chew.
Interesting.
And the chew. It's healthy, and it's not full of stuff like the what's that burger you just want?
Well, I'm going to try chia seeds that you soak to make a chia egg type mixture. It's just all chia, and that's supposed to be really good for the moisture. When I can't use something like oatmeal, that will help absorb some of the moisture too. I haven't tried it yet. I've read about it. So Tim can have the oatmeal burgers like that, and I'll have my chia beef burger or something. Anyway, thanks for the ideas.
Well, we want to welcome everybody. Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just saying hello to you. I hadn't said hi to you yet.
Good to see you. And
we're taking over.
We've gone ahead and started the meeting, and we look forward to input from everybody and another fun night.
May I say one quick thing, Charlie? I wanted to thank Scott's wife for last week. That was wonderful.
Yes, it was.
Oh, you were such a help to us, and you were so willing to share so impersonal things too. And we hear a lot from the guys, but it was really nice to have you because we can so identify with some of the things, and you were so kind to share your story. So thank you so much from all of us. It was really helpful.
Well, thank you for saying so. I started doing that when we had the in-person classes, and it's a lot easier in front of a group of people when you can see the faces and see the responses, and it's hard. It's a little bit harder in this format because you don't really get that visual feedback as much.
Right.
But I know, and there have been some comments from Scott's gotten some emails from some folks. I'm very appreciative of the kind comments, and I did share a bit more personal in the in-person classes. And as you mentioned, it is difficult. And I find post talk that it's kind of hard for me for a while. It kind of really affects me emotionally, being so personal. So this time I wasn't quite as personal. I know some folks had some comments about, oh, you didn't share this or you didn't share that. And I appreciate so much that they remembered those other parts of this presentations I've given before. And maybe someday I'll get to a place where it's easier for me to share as much as I used to. But thank you very much. I appreciate the kind comments.
You're very welcome.
Well, does anyone open up with any questions so we kind of go back to the last 3 classes with the weight management, with the calorie density, and then you can continue with weight management the week before, and then last week, of course, the food addiction and behavior change. Does anyone have questions, comments, what impact it had on you, if it was helpful? This is a good format to just kind of dig a little deeper with what questions you have, reflections, anything, basically. And Charlie always has more videos if no one has anything to talk about.
I have a question. I was going to ask Angela something, but I don't want to pry.
No, please.
But I'm wondering if Charlie and Scott could talk about what they think makes somebody willing. Well, I've lost a lot of weight, and I've gotten the comments about, oh, you're skinny, or are you eating enough, and all that. I just wondered if you had anything to share about what weight loss felt like to you.
Sure. There's a little bit of a lag there, but I think I heard enough of what your question was. So if I'm going to repeat it here. So it sounds like
hard to hear me.
It's just it's a little bit drawn out, a little bit of a lag. So so I think what you're saying is, what did weight loss feel like to me when I experienced it. So are you asking like emotionally, how did it feel? Or I guess I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more of what you were looking for specifically. Is she typing it out? I heard typing sounds. Yeah. So yes, body image. Yeah. So one thing I will say, this is just my experience, and I'm certainly not an expert or a trained professional about these things. This is just my own personal experience. But I know that when because my weight loss from when I started to where I was at my lowest, I lost 80 pounds. So it was a large weight loss, and I had lost weight before, large chunks of weight from other dieting tries in my past. Never that much though, and always gained it back and then some, cycling up. But that was a large weight loss, and so I think what's really hard sometimes is when I spent a lot of time at a higher weight. I think your identity is so wrapped up in how you feel every day with that weight that even when you lose the weight, even though you feel better, the scale tells you you're doing better, you're wearing clothes that are a smaller size, it's hard to shake that internal feeling of what that weight felt like. And sometimes it's hard to describe if you haven't really experienced that. One example I gave Scott, which is more of just trying to explain how how you perceive yourself every day. I still felt like I was the same weight I was before, even though I wasn't. And one of the examples I always gave to Scott was if you're walking somewhere and you're trying to like maybe cut between somewhere and you look at the space that your body has to get through. And I would look at that space and think, I can't fit through there. I don't think I can fit through that space. I can't go between this table and chair and slide through, thinking that it's going to be too tight. And as I would walk through it, I would easily go between that space. And it would remind me all the time that in my head, I was still feeling that larger weight, even though I wasn't that weight anymore. And I think and that's just an example of a physical situation when you're trying to maneuver. But I think it really speaks to how you sort of carry that in your mind all the time. It's something where it takes a long time to readjust how you feel about yourself and how you perceive yourself physically and emotionally. So I'm not sure if that was your question, if that sort of answered your question, or if there's something more specific you want me to speak to that wasn't quite it, I'd be happy to. I think she's frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen. Could you guys hear us okay, Charlie?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. And she said that's good.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah.
I have a question for you as well, if you're done.
Oh, please. Yes. Hi.
Hi, I'm Linda. So I could really relate, I think, to some of the things you said. It was meaningful to me. I also have been on numerous diets in my life from the time I was a little kid, and know what that yo-yo thing is that you're talking about. I like to joke that I once went on a diet. I went down to 102 pounds for 5 minutes, which is true, and then gained it all back. And that was, that's what I've done for 76 years. So I've been doing this now for 3 weeks. I was vegetarian, but eating eggs and dairy products. And now I'm doing the whole food plant-based diet for the most part. I haven't had dairy or eggs, but I did eat some potato chips. I think are processed. But anyway, but I'm doing well with it and enjoying it. And it's not that big a leap for me because I was vegetarian for so long. But I'd like to know from your point of view, what made this different? I feel worried that the same thing will happen. I'll lose weight. I've started to lose weight and it scares me because I'd rather not. I think it's better for my health to be stable than to keep doing that up and down thing, and better for my emotional health as well.
Yeah. I think the big thing for me was Well, first for me, I came from such a different place than you. I came from such a different diet. My diet was so terrible before I started. I definitely wasn't eating a vegetarian diet. I was eating a very standard American junk food, fast food diet.
Yeah, that is different.
So that, but at a certain point, I think, you know, once I switched to that plant-based diet, I mean, of course, you're going to lose a certain amount of weight. I think that initial change, but to keep going, I think the real difference, I can't stress enough, and I know I stressed it a lot last week, is calorie density. Calorie density is the absolute key to everything. If weight loss is something that's a goal for you, that is absolutely the thing that you have to look at and remind yourself of all the time. And I think what's hard about calorie density is we spend so much of our lives taught to look at calories in such a different way. You just look at the number of calories on the back of something and you'd say that's too many, or you just, your perception of calories is so different. And calorie density is, it takes a little bit of that great video that Scott has from the Jeff Novick, thank you. Jeff Novick is so worth watching, and I've watched it so many times, and I will rewatch it and be like, oh my gosh, yes, that's right. And it's such a great refresher, and it is so, I think of it so much as that I spent my whole life eating wrong and viewing food and viewing calories and viewing fats and protein, all these things in such a warped way that it takes time. It takes time to really teach your brain to think about these things differently. And calorie density is the key. And I think with anyone with weight loss, no matter what you're doing, even if you're eating a vegetarian diet, I think there's so much about calorie density that can really reshape how you think about the food that you eat. And I think the great thing about calorie density is that you can eat so much more food than you realize. And that's what I worry about sometimes when you first start eating this way. And I was really lucky to have, Scott here to answer my questions 24/7. It made my life a lot easier. But I think there's such a concern that you would not eat enough. You're not eating enough calories. You're not looking at that calorie density and making the right choices. So you still have that thing where I'm on a diet, so I've got to be hungry. Because that's how I always felt when I was on a diet. Diet meant a little bit of starvation every day. And that's what's so different about this. If you're really following that calorie density, you're not starving every day. If you're really following that, you probably couldn't even eat as much as it says you could. You get too full. So I think that is really the difference. It's for the long haul if you're following that calorie density. And I'm certainly, that's sort of where I have my stumbling blocks as well. Starting off, of course, there was a lot of weight loss because of the huge diet change. But as time went on with calorie density, I've made so many sacrifices by what I stopped eating that there'd be times when it was like, okay, I'm plateauing or I'm not going forward. Let me look at what I'm eating on a daily basis. Well, I think if I could have my choice, I would eat whole wheat toast with peanut butter every morning, because that to me is like, it is the most wonderful thing, but that's so high in calorie density. And so now it's something I've just done recently. I've been very good for the past, I think, month or two. I love to go to Great Harvest Bakery here in town, has wonderful bread that they make. And there's honey whole wheat bread that they make there, and I love it. And I would have toast with peanut butter in the morning, but that I can't do. So I can't go to Great Harvest Bread anymore. I can't let myself go. So I don't. And so I'm just eating my different kinds of oatmeal in the morning. And but that's like one thing. I'm at that moment where I'm like, okay, I've got to make a calorie density change right now. I have to try to move myself forward. And so I make one change. That's my one change. I have to let go of that toast in the morning. I can't do that. And so I've done that. And that's a mindfulness with calorie density. And then I can go forward and get used to that. It becomes a habit. I get used to my oatmeal. I let that toast go. And then if I'm not reaching my goal, then you just got to look at something else that you're doing. For me, it's getting rid of one thing. It's making one change and saying, okay, let's let that go. Let's move forward. Let's make that a habit. And then we'll revisit the next thing down the road.
That's great. That's really helpful, because for me, my pattern is that if I get into a certain mode, which happens. You know, it really doesn't matter what I eat. I would eat, you know, dirt off the floor maybe, but I like quantities, you know, I want, and that's a good reminder to me. Like, you know, I'm just as happy with a great big salad as I would be with the toast and peanut butter. So that's a good thing for me to be mindful of.
Great.
The other thing to consider too, when you're losing weight too, is think about, so say when you're, you know, 20 pounds heavier, 40 pounds heavier, 80 pounds heavier, you burn more calories just moving your body around. And so the same calorie density that you were successful with losing that 40 pounds, 80 pounds, 20 pounds, it's not, the reason you plateau is, one of the reasons is because now you're not burning as many calories moving your body around. And so now you have to drive your calorie density even lower than you did before to achieve the same success you did previously, which is kind of can be frustrating. It's like, well, I lost 80 pounds on eating the calorie density level I was, however you were eating, but now it's not working because now you're burning less calories. Now you got to move it down a little bit lower, and it'd be helpful to increase your exercise activity level too, because that'll stimulate you to burn even more calories. So it's
Makes sense. Thank you.
that's one of those little.
And that's a good reminder. That's a good reminder for me too. Makes you feel better because it makes you feel like I've already achieved this. Why can't I do better? And yeah, there's always a good reason. The harsh truth. Change your calorie density. Always the answer.
Can I say something?
Oh, please.
I was just going to say that my experience, 2010 to 2013, I fell into this program really easily. I found it really, really easy to change, and it was 100%. And I lost 80 pounds, just kind of like you did. I didn't have the experience of thinking I was still heavy. For me, I gained a lot of personal power about it. I started wearing color, which I'd never wore before, you know, that kind of thing. But then I had some major surgeries in 2013 that took me from, you know, the high fiber, plant-based kind of place to smoothies. I had a colon resection, and all of a sudden my world was really, really different. And it took a good year and a half before I was trying to eat again. And then I spent quite a bit of time, I think some post-traumatic stress stuff about all that, because I was afraid to eat that stuff, because the Western world of gastroenterologists think that you shouldn't eat nuts and seeds and, you know, all kinds of things. They thought I should eat softer foods because now I had a history of diverticulitis. So I kind of was afraid to do that. And then, you know, last year when I found Scott, I think I felt like God had lifted a hand for me, because I'd looked for Scott for a long time. And I was in the hands of a doctor that everybody in this community thinks is wonderful. But when my A1C hit 14, and in 2010 and 2014, I reversed my diabetes totally.
Wow.
But here I am, you know, 9 years later, I'm still dealing with those surgeries and that sort of stuff. This time I'm finding Scott, when my A1C was 14, you know, she wanted to start insulin. Not only did I say no, I said, well, a 4-letter word, no. Hell no, word with an F, you know. But, and she just really ridiculed me that, you know, I just thought to myself, I'm going back to whole plant-based foods. I have to do this. I can't die. And well, where will you get your protein? And for God's sake, don't eat fruit. And you know, when I met Dr. Greger and kind of explained that to him, I thought, what should I do? And he said, get another doctor. And then I found Scott through a nutritionist that I was working with in town, and that's been great. But I got to say that I'm now, this time, I had my A1C down to 8 something, and now it's going back up again. A lot of stress around coming out of retirement and going to work. And I'm finding the process of getting back into the plan that I know will work for me. And sometimes the more I think about that, the more off the track I get. I feel kind of stupid and brain dead. It's like, I know exactly everything that we're talking about every week, but yet I just find myself struggling harder and harder with stuff that was easy for me before. It's like part of me, you know, I have an appointment coming up with Scott, and I don't want to have the blood work done and go see Scott unless I know it's going to be good. So, last time I didn't run, but I do feel like running, but that's not going to help me either. So, and that's my struggle. But losing 80 pounds, boy, I felt a lot of personal power.
Good for
Like
you.
I could do anything, Superman kind of.
Good. I mean, I should say, it's not that I didn't feel good about it. I think, but I think that I harbored a lot of fear of regaining, because that's what I'd always done. And I think, and I think it's, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that I really held on to my mental image of myself even after that. And that probably has a lot to do with my own my own personal stuff. But I think I think it's I would think that there's some of that is there is a lot of power in feeling the loss of the weight. But I think I just think I'm always nervous about sliding, because that's where I always ended up, is sliding back. And it's been 6 years now, and I did have my slide back during COVID, which has been hard, which is now I'm kind of trying to dig myself out of. But it's not like any slide that I had before. And I feel like my habits are so ingrained. I'm not as worried about it as I used to be.
Yeah.
But I think, I just think every day when I have my places where I feel like I'm struggling, you get into the same pattern. You're kind of eating the same thing. You're not getting anywhere. And I think this is what's important, is to find that one thing for me, is to find that one thing to change. This is the thing that I'm going to work on.
Yeah. I didn't start it in 2010 about weight, although I needed to lose the weight. At that point, I started it because of the diabetes.
Oh, of course.
My mother was dying, and she was in her 90s, and I would visit my mom a lot, and I would look at her. I looked just like her, and I'd say, oh my God, if I don't change something, I'm going to spend the last 12 years of my life in a nursing home, demented, overweight, insulin dependent. I could see it, and I thought, I got to change something. And that's what started me to do it. So I started it about the diabetes. The weight was a shock how simply it came off. It was like, what? And exercise, I didn't even know how to spell that word. The weight just kind of fell off. And even though I felt really good when I was successful at it, after the surgeries, and as it slid over the years back to where I am again now, my A1C is over 9. I felt really good when I was in the right space, but I guess I'll use the word depression here. I think the depression and the emotional toughness about feeling like a failure again has really been hard. And I'm the sort of person where I think I can do anything I set my mind to, and I've done that my entire life, and I have a lot of successes. But here I am struggling with this right now when my diabetes is really back. The 80 pounds is back, and I'm having a harder time than I can even imagine. It's hard to even explain. I spent probably 25 or 30 years, never went to a fast food restaurant, never. And, I've been falling, and, when I'm driving up the freeway, I go to Vancouver a lot. When I'm driving up the freeway, somehow my breakfast of Egg McMuffins I get in my car and it demands me to do that. So, I'm even doing something I would never have done. So it's a struggle for me right now. My biggest commitment for myself right now is to see Scott on a regular basis and to attend every one of these classes. And I did get a lot out of the calorie density stuff. And I did watch the Kevin Novak stuff. I did get a lot.
Good.
Did you watch last week's class?
Oh yeah, I was here.
Okay, yeah, 'cause that's a lot of it. Is just realizing when you can attest to that. Only a whole food plant-based diet was the only diet that didn't allow her to eat the foods that the high sugar, the salt, the fat, the foods that where other diets will allow you to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So they're just still feeding the addiction. So
and it doesn't help to eat the fake stuff. You think it's healthy, it's plant-based, but it's still processed, and that's not helping either. So it's I'm just in a tough, weird spot right now, and I'll get out.
Yeah, and I think to me, what I'm so glad though for you is that you already have the knowledge about this, and that it can work for you. And sometimes the hard part, the emotional part, the things you have to kind of get through to get there, but at least you know it works and you know the path you have to take.
Well, in my professional life, I'm a nurse. I own a care facility. Recently, about 3 months ago, I took in a woman who'd been serious diabetes for over 20 years. She'd had an open wound open for 15 years.
Oh my God.
All I did was reduce her oil, and we closed the wound in a month and a half.
Oh.
Her blood sugars came into space, and I could make them a ton better. And she doesn't even realize that I've changed things about her food, because you don't have to starve on this. But in my world, I can't not serve the standard American diet. It's a rule. It's a law. I have to do it. I can tweak it a lot. So I just decreased her oils, and that changed her blood sugars enough. The only thing stopping me now from really doing some good with her blood sugars is her doctor. Her endocrinologist is an idiot. I don't know what to say. I mean, I sent him 3 months worth of blood sugars and how they stabilized and how they got down. They got down into the 1 in 200 range from 4 and 500 with no plan. And he just added more insulin, which is, it's like, oh my God, cut it out. But anyway, so I do know. I mean, I do know in another place, and it's my own personal journey that's dragging me right now. And I could probably give you a list of excuses, but it won't really help me. So
Well,
I chime in a little bit because that really resonated with me. I'm Megan. I'm a first-year med student at Western. But I struggle like a lot with, I've changed my diet years ago for health reasons. I'm sure I'll share at some point. But weight was always the thing that goes up and down for me as well. And I tend to get really hard on myself when I do gain weight. And I've noticed that it's usually a time, and what I'm hearing a little bit from your story is it comes in with stress. And what I tend to do is I'm like, oh, you know what you need to be doing and you're not doing it, or you're a failure, or you're messing up. What is everyone going to think when you know better, and blah, blah, blah. You preach all this stuff, right? But what I'm learning, and I'm not there yet, but it's really to take a step back and look and see like, okay, is this something I need to beat myself up for? Or is this just kind of a chapter in my life right now? And it's, I don't know, it's just letting you know that you're in a process or in a part of your life that you have all this extra struggle, that you need a little bit of protection, really, so that weight, a lot of the time weight is, or food is, defense mechanism, or it's a coping mechanism, or whatever it is that helps you engage with the world in a way, and also protect yourself from the stressful situation, or not wanting to address something. And that's what I find, that I start gaining weight, and then I get hard on myself, and then it's like this spiral. And the harder that I am on myself, and I don't know if this resonates with other people, the harder it becomes to switch back to what I know to be healthy for me. And so I'm not, I haven't figured everything out or anything, but just fixing, trying one more thing to make myself feel better each day. It really, really helps with, because it starts changing your mindset, and it helps you realize, like, why am I doing this? Like, what reasons do I have to be stressed or overwhelmed or need to protect myself? And then looking at it from a bunch of different aspects other than just I'm a failure, because I don't believe that our process, you're not failing ever. It's just, this is a hurdle, and I guess that's life.
Well, I think one of the unique things about Charlie and Scott, I mean, I've been in the medical profession for almost 40 years, so I've been here a long time. But I think one of the things that's unique about those two guys is that they've totally bucked a lifetime of learning. And when you're first year medical student, the stuff you're going to learn is not stuff that it's all good. There's a lot of good stuff there, don't get me wrong, but if you follow the path of the standard Western medicine doctor who doesn't reach out and learn different things, these two guys have bucked that entire system. And, you know, as medical professionals, I think we get, whether we realize it or not, I think we get caught up of the wonderful things we can do for other people. And we're the last ones at the end of the day. And somehow we have to put ourselves first so we can do better by all the other people that we want to save. I mean, I want to save every person in the world and every child to have clean water. And, you know, when I was sick in 2013, my daughter would say to me, Mom, can you stop thinking about water for kids in Africa for just a day? You know what I mean? But, you know, and I deal with doctors all day, every day. I write orders. I would never call a doctor, standard doctor, and say, this is my problem. What do you think? Because they would tell me to give them milk of magnesia and 2 aspirins and call them in the morning or something. You know what I mean? So I write orders all the time for doctors. And, you know, this endocrinologist that I'm trying to work with here has no clue, or like the doctor that I left because she didn't have any clue about nutrition, nothing. You know what I mean? And in some sense, it's not their fault because they don't learn that. So you're out here as a first-year student trying to take care of yourself, trying to take care of people, the stress of taking in all the learning you're doing, you got to give yourself a damn break.
But I think what I think I'm so pleased to hear what she's touched on those, because I think she's really grasped the concept of mindfulness.
I think so, yeah.
Being so mindful about stepping back and asking, why am I feeling this way? Turn off that negative thought about I'm a failure. Let's look at what am I responding to? It's recognizing that, and this is what I had to do. I had to recognize that, and I talked about this more when I used to be more personal with my talk, about, for me, food became not only the thing that comforted me when I was stressed, it was also the thing that comforted me when I was happy. It became such an addiction that if something great happened, I needed to celebrate with something that fed my addiction. If something bad happened, I needed to comfort myself with something from my addiction. It becomes the thing that embraces you no matter what spectrum you're on. And I think I'm so pleased to hear her talk about how just to have that moment of saying, wait a minute, I'm feeling my head full of these negative thoughts. I'm mindful of that, and let's step back and see here, why am I doing that? And why am I using food to make myself feel better? I mean, if I could have had that thought 35, 40 years ago, that would have been great. But instead it was just like, oh, I don't feel good. That's what I did. So that's awesome.
Not like how she said, you know, it's not a failure. You know, I mentioned this last week. It's a learning experience. So when you make a poor choice, it's a learning experience. When you make the correct choice, then you should celebrate yourself. And so it should always be positive. And because it is
celebrate without eating something bad.
You know, celebrate your success with the right thing.
Thank you very much to Charlie for your wife. I appreciate her saying how she had to stop, and in her head, in her mind, she had to help herself see that these are the changes she needed to make. And that's what I'm fighting with right now. The changes that I have to make mentally, but yet it's like I can lose weight and then turn right back around and I'm in that spiral again. And I got to catch myself and go, wait a minute, stop. I can't save someone else if I can't save myself. I got to save me first. And that's what I keep telling myself to help me cope. Sherelle, just stop a minute. Let's think positive, because I love food when I'm happy. Yes. And I enjoy it when I'm happy.
Yeah. And somebody posed a question in the chat about asking Charlie and I what do we think is there something with people that do well and some people struggle? And I talk about all the time that I give everyone the same opportunity. I don't ever judge somebody whether they're going to do it or not. I've mentioned in other classes before where I'll have a patient where their daughter's a vegan, their spouse is a vegetarian, and they're already mostly vegetarian themselves. And so this will be easy. This person will go whole food, plant-based, no problem. And they really struggle. Then I've had patients where they're eating, the standard American diet, the worst kind of diet ever. Yeah. And or they're already, really in their elder years and like a curmudgeonly old guy or something. Oh, gosh, yeah. Like Angela can talk about the example of someone that came to our classes at the church for a long time. And she thought, there's no way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so Scott would say this, how he would you know, he presents this to everybody without judging the person in front of them and making any assumptions. And I don't know if he's here at the class tonight, but there's a gentleman who used to come to the in-person, and he comes to these as well. And when I met him one night and chatted with him, he talked about how he had so embraced this and how he'd made so many changes and how he turned his health around and his life is completely different. And I'm looking at this guy, and I went home and I told Scott, and I said, I was so thrilled to hear his story, but I felt so guilty the whole time. So I told Scott that if I had looked at him in the office, if I was the doctor and he'd come in, I would not have even offered it to him, because in my mind, I would have thought, here's this old curmudgeonly guy who's never going to take this on, who's going to think this is crazy and I'm not going to change my ways and I'll never do this. And he completely embraced it and changed his life and is so much healthier now. And I think that's so, it was, I felt bad for thinking that, but it just immediately made me think of how Scott always approaches everything, is that you never know how a person's going to respond to this. And I think more than anything, and I know some people were talking about at the beginning how some people have a spouse or a partner that doesn't do this. And as you know, I didn't do it for 3 years. Scott did it on his own for 3 years. And I think when you first start doing this, you really want everybody to do it with you. You want your spouse to do it. You want your kids to do it. You want everybody to jump on board, because it's the most amazing thing. And what I've had to learn was the hard reality of you're never going to talk, and on my own example, right? 3 years, I told him to shut it. I didn't want to hear about it. Stop talking about your plant-based crap. I want to eat my junk food. And so but you know, when people are ready to do it, they're going to be ready to do it. And I think the best thing to do is just to just keep living that example and just keep doing it. People will come around to what you are doing when they see your success, or when they see how much better you feel and how much better your life is. That's so much a bigger testimonial and so much a bigger advertisement about what you're doing than trying to sort of pitch it to somebody. Because I remember being that way at the beginning. We tried to like get a lot of different family members on board, and they all looked like I did when Scott was trying to get me on board, which is like, leave me alone, you're crazy. And like even our kids. So we have 2 boys. I say boys, they're adult men now. They're still my babies, and I still refer to them that way. I will forever. But so they're married, and our oldest son and his wife are completely whole food plant-based. They eat that way all the time. Our younger son and his wife, I think they try to, you know, they dibble dabble in and out, but they know that the bottom line is that they know what it is. They know what it can do for them. They know what health they can have, and that's the biggest thing with everybody. It's just, you need to have the knowledge. If everybody just has the knowledge, then they can make the choice for themselves, whether it's today, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now. Just having that knowledge and knowing what this is about, I think, is the most powerful thing you can do for anybody, just so they know, and then they can find it for themselves.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Yeah.
I want to change everyone too.
I know. It's possible not to, because you feel like it's the biggest, like it's so revolutionary. It's this thing that how did I not know about this? How did nobody know about this? You feel like you found the secret to life, the
like the Holy Grail.
Yes, the fountain of youth, the Holy Grail.
Of course, you know my nerdy analogy is the Matrix. You've seen the Matrix movies, right? So you're unplugged. You've been unplugged from the Matrix. Those of you took the red pill, not the blue pill. So those of you know that.
How do people know that reference?
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of gist. Yeah. It's just your life is. You feel like it's just the biggest life-changing thing, and how do you want to keep that to yourself? It's just impossible.
Yeah, I had just emailed Scott and Charlie yesterday because we had a patient walk into our clinic that was, a really heavy guy, and he was sad about his weight and seeing it on the scale. And, I mentioned to him about have you ever thought about plant-based eating? And, first thing that he said was, oh, I'll never give up my steak. And I was like, well, then maybe just add more vegetables to your plate. But he was just not, hearing it. But yeah, it's just sad. I just want to, help change everyone.
Totally agree.
So sad when you can't get something listened to more than 4 words about plant-based eating. My brother is 5 years younger than I am, and I'm 67, so I'm not a spring chicken. But he is massively overweight. He has AFib, he has high cholesterol, high blood pressure. And oh my God, I open my mouth and I cannot get 2 words out. And it's like, don't tell me what to eat. and it breaks my heart because I know that we're all going to be standing around at his funeral and wishing that he had just changed. And it will kill me to lose my baby brother. But what do you do when you can't? I mean, he loves Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I tried to get him to watch Game Changers. He just wouldn't do it. And it's so sad when you know what you could help him with, but he just won't listen.
I mean, I don't think you can understate enough of how addicting that food is and how addicting the way of life of eating that. Because I feel like I was in the same place. You couldn't have told me anything about it that I would want to hear because.
Well, I know because I have a major food problem. I mean, to the point where I had a gastric bypass 13 years ago. And, I mean, I'm supposedly a success because I've kept like 60% of my weight off. But still, I could still use to lose about 30 or 40 pounds and I'd be fine, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely, people have to be ready though. People have to be ready to hear it. And it's hard. There's no magic formula for trying to relay this information. I think just sharing your successes or sharing how these classes are, you hear other people's successes. And I think that's what really sold me was Scott would come home and tell me about patients and how patients' lives had really changed with what was happening. And I think anybody that is in that where they're unhealthy like I was, it's not like they don't know that they need to do that. We all know it. We all know deep down inside that we need to make a change. And I think it's hard it's just because so many other things I tried failed. At a certain point after the 67th diet, you sort of feel like, what's going to be different this time? And it is I think it's a bigger leap of faith because it is so radically different from how I ate every day. So it's not an easy sell, but I think when a person's ready, I can't think of obviously there's no better way to do it, but it's not always easy.
Someone put in the comments, my hook is to tell male friends about the dark leafy greens producing nitric oxide, because it's like Viagra basically. So I've actually had probably, I bet 6 or 7 male patients where they were doing it for weight loss, get off medications, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, those types of things. And then like in hindsight later on, when I told them, oh yeah, you need a refill of your Viagra, and like, because that's on their med list or whatever, they'd be like, oh no, I haven't used that in a long time. And it's like, you didn't tell me that was going to get better. And I said, you should have told me that first before you told me I was going to maybe reverse my diabetes. You should have told me that it was going to fix my erectile dysfunction, because
maybe I should tell my brother that.
I have a funny brother story for Linda. I have an older brother, and when I threw my Christmas party this year, my whole family knows that I'm going to cook healthy stuff for them. And so on the invitation, I put something about, family time and game time and healthy foods. And my older brother called me and said, is there going to be anything I'll eat? And when I said, there's going to be lots of things and there'll be something you'd enjoy, he thinks he knows me so well, he brought his own junk food to my party.
Oh no.
And he did not touch one thing.
Oh.
Yeah. He's not going to give up his Budweiser or his steak.
I know. Meat is a hard thing for folks, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to add too, in my situation, and when someone is adverse to it, my philosophy is to lead by example. Because if you cause resentment, that can break a relationship, that can create hard feelings. And we don't want to do that. I think we teach and reach more people if we lead by our example and being positive and helpful. I admit I was going to stop the course after the first week. And then Christine helped me when she mentioned a few words to me and talking about her situation and encouraged me by what she said. Well, that's what I needed to hear at just the right time, because I have negativity. Not that my husband's negative, he's after almost 54 years, he's still very, very loving. But I know that it's not my place to cause resentment in our home. And no one should do that. And so I fix what I like, and he'll say, oh, that looks pretty good. And then I let him have some, even though I made plenty for the next day. I guess I didn't want to cook it all again. And he's liked it. So we're just going slowly. And I think for those of you with relationship issues, just be positive and upbeat and happy, and don't nag about it or anything. Just present a happy, healthy example in your life and what you're overcoming. And that's what I've learned. And Christine, thank you, because that was such a blessing for me to hear your words and how the program had helped you so much, and some similar issues that I have. And then with Angela sharing and all of you sharing, we're just helping one another. And it's wonderful. And so thank all of you for what you talk about, and even the burgers and, and Virgil, and I'm going to have to check into that, all these ideas and positive thoughts. And I think that's where a lot of healing comes from too. Be positive and loving and helpful, and just set a right example, not a negative one, just a real positive and happy, and show that you're doing well. And they'll notice. They'll notice. They may not want to change, but they will notice. So just a thought.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to speak about what Lynn just said, and that is that unity is more important than being right.
Yes.
And, you start insisting that you're right, and you try to really force the situation. It's just not going to go. You really, what's so much more important is unity in your relationships and in general.
Yeah, I agree, Eric. And loving one another is so much easier than hardships and causing problems. I wish the world would get it.
Yeah.
But we can start in our own neighborhood, in our own home, in our neighborhood, and I love to go shopping because I meet more people I don't know. I just am talking and laughing, and it's just, I've enjoyed, I haven't enjoyed the pandemic. I've seen it as a positive way to reach out to others. And stand in line. Why be quiet? Why not share and talk and be happy? And we pretty soon I have a whole group of people, and we're just laughing, and then the store opens, and then we go in and go our separate ways. Well, maybe someone's heart was touched. I think so. So yeah, I think that leading by example and being positive and happy is hard sometimes, but it's just really important. We feel better, and our health improves as we live this way. So thank you, Eric. I'm glad you agree. That's great.
I think that it makes a big difference if a person has gone into a non-animal form of food. If you've watched the videos, all you have to do is watch the torture the animals go through. And where Scott has mentioned the effect of farming for grain that ends up just going into the animals. It's such a poor, efficient way of using grain. And if a person is committed to this kind of a diet because they object to the way the planet or the animals on it are treated, it's kind of a no-brainer to follow it. It's just that it helps if you have support in your household, probably. I'm just one person, so I can clean out my cupboards. I clear out stuff. I do it about every month. I go over to the Eugene Mission Kitchen and give them the stuff that I'm not using, that I don't want to use. They'll even give you a receipt if you want, but you don't have to do that. But But even in a house with other people, if they watch a video of the slaughterhouses or the transport of the animals en route in airplanes to Japan for the Clydesdale horses, look, they wouldn't want to touch the meat again if they watched that stuff. But you don't have to watch very many of them. Then you quit. Then you don't want to watch them anymore.
Yeah, but I can't even get them to watch Arnold.
Oh my God. That's right. You said that.
I got his wife working on it for me. So
I know. Maybe you could watch Arnold, and then if he's in the house, he hears Arnold.
Well, we don't see each other in person that often. They live down in Cottage Grove, but I'm working on them.
I think also a lot of people think that, you know, they hear plant-based diet, whole food diet, whatever, and they think the food won't be palatable. They think it's not good. My husband eats everything and, you know, tons of butter and oil and sugar. He's a type 1 diabetic. And I proposed to him, you know, that I'm doing this and so I'd be willing to do all the cooking. And if he doesn't like the food, he can make his own stuff, you know. So he's been eating the food I prepare and he loves it. And in the last 3 weeks, he's had to lower his insulin dose 4 times. Wow. I mean, he keeps going low.
That's great.
So he's beginning to catch on, you know, that, hey, maybe there's something to this.
That's amazing. That's amazing and wonderful.
But what's happening is he's lowering his insulin resistance. So as a type 1, just so everyone else understands, as a type 1 diabetic, he doesn't make insulin. So no matter how good his diet is, he'll never get off insulin. But
exactly.
But his insulin resistance is going down, which is really important for improving health. So his insulin requirements are going down, which is great.
Yeah, he's also eating fewer carbs because I'm providing food that's lower in carbs.
And refined carbohydrates as well.
Yeah, refined carbohydrates.
We don't want, you want fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains.
Lots of all that. And he's, you know, and it tastes great. He likes it.
That's good.
And I would be perfect if somebody would prepare food for me.
I say that to Scott all the time. I
Me too.
I wish I enjoyed cooking. I really wish I did. You know, you see people that say, "Oh, I love cooking," and I think, "Oh, if I could only be you." And I think someone just said at the beginning of the class how they had their same recipes. It's getting a little old.
Oh, yeah.
And Scott looked at me and laughed because
we're getting there.
we were getting there. We kind of get into this routine where we kind of make this. It's a 2-week switch off. Like this week we do that. The next week we do these. Then we go back to the others. We kind of need to get out of our rut, but it's
we sprinkle in some new ones too.
We do, but it is easy to get it. Just like, I mean, we kind of were in a rut when we ate before this anyway. I mean, you kind of get your routine of the things that you make, but yeah, it's I wish I've definitely done more cooking in the past 6 years by far than I ever have my whole life, but it's getting better. I to all of you that enjoy cooking, I salute you.
I would like to see more of what Charlie and Mrs. Charlie eat. That session that you guys did showing what's on your plate was just mind-blowing to me. That kind of stuff doesn't ever cross my mind. It's like, what is really on that plate?
Really simple stuff. Yeah, Charlie.
I'd like to see more of that.
I really enjoyed that because one of the results of the gastric bypass is a lot of people get dumping syndrome, which is a reaction to sugar, but I've gotten really bad hypoglycemia. So if I eat breakfast, usually I can't, I lose the whole day because I get sleepy and I fall asleep. But after watching Christine and Charlie's video, I said, well, why can't I eat greens for breakfast? So that's what I've been doing, and they don't make me sleepy, and I get to eat in the morning and still enjoy my day. So that was very helpful.
Great. So I've been enjoying listening to the group. I do want to spend just a couple minutes because I want to try to sum up some of the barriers to making changes. a number of you have addressed the issue as to why some people are successful at being able to transition and other people are not. We reviewed these during our afternoon class, and I think they're important enough to share with you. It won't take very long if I just read through it pretty quickly. And it's a list of 20 things, which I have to find here because it's hidden behind the words. And let's see if I can find this here. The top 20 barriers to changing behavior. So we're going to kind of call that up here. It's by, this was been around for a long time, since 2004, by Frank Smoot. And I kind of picked this up because I thought it was pretty valuable. He said that any one of these barriers could be enough to keep you from winning at weight loss. It could also be other things than weight loss. Like maybe you have problems with depression or anxiety, or maybe you're just having problems learning to hit the tennis ball like you want to. So therefore, you must be aware that they exist and know how to spot them and how to deal with them. Each of these barriers is followed by a brief description of the best way to approach or deal with this barrier so you can ultimately remove it from your path. So here are some of the barriers for some of you who are struggling with change. The first one is limiting or self-defeating beliefs. You need to identify your problem beliefs and replace them. And that was sort of mentioned tonight in the negative thoughts that you may develop. And you'll hear this theme come up in most of these. A corrupted self-image. You need to identify your problem beliefs, then identify, accept, embrace all the things about you that are wonderful, excellent, and admirable. Now, many of us do not do that. We focus on the negative aspects as maybe our parents or our friends and relatives and whoever have kind of set us up with this corrupted self-image, and of course our culture. And then 3, an impaired DQ or deservability quotient. So if this could be a problem, you identify it in your belief and you replace how you feel about how deservable you are with one that recognizes, affirms, and supports your innate worthiness. And then the 4th is looking for external solutions. Rid yourself forever of the notion that any force or factor outside yourself determines what you can be, do, or have. Your brain can perform wonders if you give yourself a chance and stop looking for some external solution. Habitual inactivity, that's the absence of movement or exercise. We've talked about it. It's important. So just get moving. You don't have to do marathon runs. Just get up more frequently from watching the TV or whatever you're doing. Number 6, feeling depressed. Get a less narrow view of your circumstances and focus on the big picture. Watch your thoughts, get professional help if depression persists. And that can be a huge barrier to making change. Coming out, like staying out of denial. Be willing to explore yourself fearlessly and then embrace what you discover. All negativity is learned and can be unlearned. And then learn bad habits relating to eating, thinking, etc. Program to clean your plate. I know I was told you got to get your plate clean no matter what's on it. Stop rewarding self-destructive behavior. Reward only supportive thoughts, words, and actions. So why are children's undesirable behavior so persistent? Because we rewarded them with attention. So stop doing that with yourself. a lifetime of exposure to misinformation and backward priorities. These classes hopefully will point you to much of that misinformation, as long as you're willing to seriously consider alternative solutions. Know what trumps what in life's creative order, and then your own inner resistance to change. None of us like to do things different, generally. We reward all victories and progress, no matter how trivial they are, and they seem to your conscious mind. Again, never reward what you don't want, especially with your emotional attention. And then fear of being physically smaller, of being more attractive, of what other people think, have thought, or will think. Get beyond the tyranny of OPO, that's other people's opinions. We all are driven by what people think about us. We spend a lot of time thinking about that, and we need to kind of focus on what is healthy for us. Boredom, leading to eating just to be doing something. Do something else, anything else. And then 13, compensatory eating. Your life doesn't seem to be very sweet, so you eat something that is. Your life feels empty, so you eat to fill the void. You want more love, and food is as close as you think you get. What are you trying to compensate for? Very important to know. Then see how you can get that need met in a non-food oriented way. 14, your own impatience based on your unrealistic conscious expectations, which then creates stress, which you respond to by eating. Patience, let go the need for instant success or results. And then years of momentum in the wrong direction. Again, be patient. Real change takes a bit of time. Self-defeating self-talk. You've heard about that tonight. It's not very helpful. Monitor yourself and correct it instantly. It's extremely important. Control and authority issues, like you need better information, get over it, or stay stuck forever. And then 18, integrity issues, failure to keep promises to yourself or others. Understand the true cost to yourself. Your own word must be as good as gold, or you can never trust yourself. On honesty issues, fear of telling the truth to yourself or others. Get in touch with your courage, do what needs to be done, and say what needs to be said. You'll definitely survive the truth. We tell our grandkids, be honest with those significant others of yours. That's the way to develop good relationships and happiness, and do that with yourself. And the habitual negativity, being on autopilot to be negative, recognize it as a personal pattern, spot it when it happens, replace it with something positive fast. And any of the above sound familiar to you? If it resonates, it's good news, because you have to know what's broke before you can fix it. So with that, I'll stop the share.
Frank Smoot, S-M-O-O-T.
Yes. So there are a number of people who have kind of expressed they're getting stuck. It might be one of those 20 reasons, and just focus on that. Go through them, spend time. You don't have to go to the psychiatrist and spend 100 visits to kind of figure those out. You can kind of look at them and think if they seem to resonate with you.
I appreciate that list, Charlie, because it's hit a lot of points just for everyday living. But as I've been listening tonight, and we all have our own personal little baggage we're carrying for the reason of doing this. Some want to lose weight, some for health. I do it for health reasons. Losing weight has been a side benefit for us.
Yeah.
For both of us. We were talking about losing weight, and although I did wish I could get rid of my beer belly, but and I have. It's gone, and I didn't have to buy larger pants. So that's even better.
No, now I need suspenders to hold them up.
So, but my thought is, part of doing this for any of us is remembering why you're doing it. It's, you know, you're not doing it if you're doing it to please someone, or you're doing it to please yourself or improve your health. Weight loss generally improves health. I have bad plumbing, cardiovascular disease. And if I can't correct it, I'm 78. I'm not ready to get old yet. I'm still busy all day. And so I've gotten off some medications that was affecting my ability to do things. But whole food plant-based diet helps me that possible to do that. And by the whole food plant-based diet, possibly I can clear up some of my arteries and cholesterol problems so I can live longer. Because I've never had a heart attack. I just have horrible plumbing. But you know, that's just what I got. But I do it because I want to be healthier. That's why we're doing it here. It's just health. It's so I think sometimes we have to stop along with your 20 lists, 20 points there, Charlie, and think about why you're doing it. Why do you want to eat better? Why do you want to get, you know, do you want to eat a whole food plant-based diet because you want to be healthier? But then there's your goal. You've got a goal and a purpose. And, you know, the everyday trials of up and downs are going to come and go.
And the
But you just,
the 20 points just kind of hit on that. Why are you doing this? Why are you lying to yourself? You have to do it for you.
and get healthier.
Yeah,
Because when you get healthier, you'll feel better.
that's true too.
And your emotions will be better.
And
You
don't
know?
get a dog because you have to walk it 2 miles every day. You can't take a day off.
I can. She walks the dog. I occasionally go with them, but
One of the points on there was, you know, about looking for external sources of for happiness and things like that. And that kind of reminds me of, you know, Dean Ornish when he was talking about his program a lot. He talks about, you know, because he met with a Swami or something that was his. Some of you know his story, how he got into this when he was suicidal, depressed when he was a teenager, and his family had the Swami come in, and it was this whole thing. But what he learned from that was, you know, the happiness is within. You know, it's been there all along. You just have to find it. And so it's not, you know, we always look out to somebody else to blame somebody else for our unhappiness, or I'll just be happy if I get this thing, or if I just have this thing, I'll be happy. And it's kind of realizing that you have to stop disturbing the happiness that's there. It's already there within. You just have to find it. And it's not, we need to stop looking outside of ourselves to find what we feel like we're missing. And so it's a big challenge, but I think that's a good point. And that was essentially one of the points on the 20 there.
I think one of the things that was most influential in getting me started with this was early on in the in-person classes. One of you showed the video that was a split screen between the man getting older and getting sicker. It's the life curve thing, the getting sicker and being in the bed as opposed to playing with his grandchildren and enjoying his life till hit the end. And that really got me, because I don't want to be in a wheelchair or stuck in a hospital bed and having to have people take care of me. I could not stand that. So I have to get well so I can live long and healthily.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
my philosophy is keep moving. Don't stop. If,
Yep.
if you stop, moss starts to grow. And if you start growing moss, you're in trouble. So you got to keep moving.
And get healthy.
And eating right is a part of that.
So I have just a couple videos that I really want to share with you. One of them is a story, and the other one is Chef AJ, who not touches, but addresses the point that Angela has been trying to make so strongly about calorie density. So I'm gonna share this one more time, and let me go on to, where am I going to? I am getting there eventually. Just not as organized as I'd like to be, but I'm not going to beat up on myself because eventually I'm going to get there. And it's under tip, and it's right here. I learned this by going to a meeting at UC Veg in Roseburg. They are holding classes like we hold, and they play some different videos, and I saw this one video, and so I picked it off of the YouTube, and I'm going to share it with you now.
So that's my story, and it's super cool. But the most amazing thing about what happened to me is that it can happen to you. See, anyone can find gratitude. Anyone can start being thankful for what they do have instead of complaining for what they don't have. And anyone can adopt a whole food plant-based diet. And everyone can do just a little bit more activity than they did yesterday. It's really that simple. So listen, this is out there for you if you want it. That's my story. What's yours? If you think this video will help someone, give it a share. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook.
So that's one video, and the last video I want to share with you is the one which is Ultimate Weight Loss by Chef AJ. She's so upbeat. I love listening to her.
Now, where did I learn this? Calorie density has been around ever since food has been around. And as a matter of fact, most of the plant-based doctors use this to teach their programs. I actually had 2 unread yet best-selling books on my bookshelf before I learned this. In 1980, Dr. Dean Ornish, the first person who successfully reversed heart disease with a low-fat plant-based diet, wrote a book called Eat More, Weigh Less. And when you understand the principles of calorie density and apply them to your diet, you really can eat more and weigh less. As a matter of fact, when you understand calorie density, you can literally take in twice as much food and yet consume half as many calories. In 1985, Dr. John McDougall, one of my heroes, wrote another best-selling book, which I believe is still a bestseller today, called The McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss, which also employs the principle of calorie density. But it wasn't until I picked up this book that I really understood it. About 5 years ago, I wandered into a $1 bookstore in Burbank, California after seeing a movie, and I picked up this book called Volumetrics by Dr. Barbara Rolls. Dr. Rolls has done more research in the field of calorie density than anyone else, and I had the privilege of interviewing her on my teleclass. I think the reason this book resonated so much with me is because I'm a visual learner and it had a lot of pictures. For example, on the cover, you can see that for the same amount of calories in a large bowl of minestrone soup, you could have just the tiniest cheeseburger. I remember reading in her book that for the same amount of calories and a quarter cup of raisins, which I would easily throw on my oatmeal, I could have 2 cups of grapes. And if you like pictures, there's going to be a lot of them at the end of this presentation that hopefully will cement this teaching in your brain like this book did for me. But what Barbara Rolls discovered in her laboratory at Penn State University, where she studies human eating behavior, is that all human beings eat the same amount of food per day. Now, that doesn't mean that I eat the same amount as a vegan bodybuilder like Robert Cheek or an Olympic athlete, but each of us here eats roughly the same amount of food every day. And for most people, that's about 3 to 5 pounds of food. So if you want to keep eating the same amount of food that you're used to eating, and perhaps even more food, you simply have to change the calorie density of the food you eat. If you do that by about 500 calories a day, you could easily lose a pound a week safely, sustainably, and deliciously. What Dr. Rolls also discovered is that feeling full, satiety, the end of hunger, is not just a result of the amount of calories in the food, but by the weight and the volume of the food. And believe it or not, satiety actually starts with your eyes. So when you see a full plate of food, you know you're going to be satisfied. And I hope that some of you will eat with me this weekend so you can really see how much food I eat now, because as a slender person, I eat way more than I ever did when I was obese. And I estimate that I probably eat between 7 and 10 pounds of food now. And it's fun because I get to eat all day. So let's create a calorie density chart. Now, please feel free to take notes, but we do sell these little magnets with everything I'm going to say, so that makes it easy. Green means go, and these are the healthiest foods on the planet, and they're also the foods lowest in calorie density. Red means stop, and these are, in my opinion, and many of the other experts, the most unhealthy foods on the planet. And purple, which is my favorite color, these foods are healthy, but they're just very calorically dense. So foods range in calorie density from about 100 calories per pound to about 4,000 calories per pound. That's a 40-fold difference, and that's going to make a big difference if you're trying to lose weight. Any guesses on what food or food group might have 100 calories per pound? I'm hearing greens, kale, exactly. The truth is it's any non-starchy vegetable, which is pretty much every vegetable you can think of with the exception of potatoes, corns, and beans. Beans aren't a vegetable. Potatoes, corn, yeah, potatoes and corn. And peas, not beans. Well, peas are a legume, as are beans. So here's a picture of some of the non-starchy vegetables, and if you look at some of those are botanically actually fruit. So things like zucchini, bell pepper, cucumber, okra, tomato, and eggplant, botanically they're fruit. We think of them as non-starchy vegetables. These have only 67 calories per pound. If you were to Google non-starchy vegetables, you'd get a list like this. So you could literally eat a different one every day without repeating. Americans eat less than 10% of their calories from fruits and vegetables, and over 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food. So the number one secret to ultimate weight loss is to eat vegetables. At 100 calories per pound or less for some of them, you simply cannot overeat on them. We have what's known as a BMR, a basal metabolic rate, and what that means is the amount of calories we expend at rest. So even if we were laying in a bed doing nothing, we still need a certain amount of calories to breathe our lungs and beat our heart. That's known as our BMR. If you take your weight and multiply it by 10, that would be your basal metabolic rate. So let's say you weigh 150 pounds. You would need at least 1,500 calories just to maintain your weight. How many people here think that they could eat 15 pounds of vegetables a day? I eat between 4 and 6, and I'm eating all day. Even diet styles I don't agree with, like paleo and the zone, they'll tell you these are unlimited. You can eat as many of these as you want because they're mostly water and fiber and nutrients. You know, you actually expend more calories chewing non-starchy vegetables and digesting them than in the calories. So that is really the biggest secret, is to increase your consumption of vegetables. If you look at cultures around the world that are leaner than Americans, for example, the Asians who have only a 3% obesity rate, this is a culture of people that traditionally eat vegetables. The more vegetables you eat, the leaner you'll be. We know that from a landmark study done at Tufts University, which showed that the more servings of fruits and vegetables, particularly vegetables that a person eats, consistently lower BMI and body weight. The idea of eating vegetables is really taking hold in this country, because even Conan O'Brien has said that for the first time since 2007, the USDA has finally approved a device to treat obesity. This amazing breakthrough is called a vegetable. It's true. It's true. One problem with eating vegetables is when you do go to your doctor, she'll probably say something like this: "Stop eating so many vegetables. I can't seem to find anything wrong with you." Because as luck would have it, the most calorie dilute food, the food that is lowest in calorie density, is also the food that's highest in nutrient density. Somebody posted this on my Facebook page once, and it said, "No one has ever gotten fat by eating too much kale." And it's true, but I don't want you to be juicing and blending it, which I'll explain why in a minute. The food next high in calorie density, and again, I'm rounding up 300 calories a pound. It's really more like 200 for most of them. Any guesses what might be next? You can talk. You don't be shy. Fruit. Absolutely right. It's fruit. I showed you that there's about 6 fruits that are considered non-starchy vegetables. They're actually 67 calories a pound. Most fruit, apples, berries, are about 200 calories a pound. But to compensate for those that are very high in sugar and lower in water, like bananas, we're rounding up to 300 calories a pound. So that's fruit. If you're familiar with my story, I have a book called Unprocessed. I was a severe sugar addict for the first 43 years of my life. I started every day with a Coke Slurpee and 8 pumps of vanilla syrup, Dr. Pepper, big gulps for lunch. I did not eat any fruits or vegetables until I was 43 years old, when I got the diagnosis of pre-colon cancer. Then that's all I started eating. I never ate fruit because it wasn't sweet enough, and if I did have to eat fruit, I'd have to put tons of sugar on it. But when I look at a slide like that now, I practically salivate, because fruit is nature's candy, and when you're not eating crap like sugar, it actually tastes pretty darn good. But why do we want you to eat your whole food whole instead of juiced and blended? I'm going to explain that right now. So these 2 glass jars are the same size, and we're putting in different varieties of apples in that. I'm going to show you the difference. Now, your actual stomach is about the size of a cantaloupe. It holds about a liter of food, being about 4.22 cups. These jars are much bigger. On the left, I have 500 calories worth of apples. So what I did is I went to the store, I weighed out 2.5 pounds of apples. And that was about 6 apples. It would be between 5 and 8, depending on the size of the apple. They're about 200 calories a pound. So the jar on the left has 500 calories of apple. I don't know about you, but I tried to eat 6 apples in one sitting, and after 2, I was full. But what happens when you take 500 calories of whole apples and juice them? Well, you get about 3 cups of apple juice, which is pretty easy to eat. The other problem with juice is it raises your blood sugar much more quickly than the whole food. And when you raise your blood sugar more quickly, you're raising your insulin more quickly, insulin, the hormone being responsible for driving fat into the cells. But the biggest problem here with juicing is what is missing. What's missing from the juice that's in the whole apple? The fiber and the pulp. And that is the second secret to ultimate weight loss, is to make sure that everything you eat has both the fiber and the pulp intact. Now, fiber is important to every bodily process. It helps prevent disease, it helps prevent certain cancers and flush out toxins. But for weight loss, it's super important because when you have fiber in the food with the water, fiber plus water creates bulk. And bulk is what creates satiety, which allows you to feel full on fewer calories. It's very easy to drink that much apple juice, but for most people, it would be nearly impossible to eat that many apples.
And there you have it.
Your head's cut off, Charlie. You need to put your camera down.
Okay, I kind of laying back on the couch here, really getting relaxed in. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Anyway, I always love listening to Chef AJ. She's so upbeat, and I thought she did a pretty good job of summing up what you talked about, what Angela talked about, what Jeff Novick talks about, and what's so very important in our food choices.
I'll go ahead and show real quick. Let me share my screen. Just go to the website. So I haven't done that in a couple of weeks. I'll show you on where the calorie density lecture is on there. Always does that. We launch it here. So we got the home page here, and then under videos, if you click on the tab for videos, scroll down to the bottom here. I have the full calorie density lecture by Jeff Novick, hour 19-minute long one. So I always tell everybody to watch that lecture every 3 months until you've reached your goal weight. And as well, if you start to slide and go gain weight, watch it again. So there's so much, like Angela said earlier, watch it several times. I probably watched it 9 or 10 times before I didn't pick up something new. So there's a lot of information in there.
And he's so entertaining. It's the fastest hour of your life because he's such a great speaker. It doesn't feel like it's not a chore. It's pretty entertaining.
So yeah, so that's why it's one of my favorites. So that's why I have it there on the website.
Thanks for sharing that, Scott. I think it's really important for everybody to kind of look at those things intermittently. We've been looking at them intermittently for a number of years, and we still keep learning some things. So.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Velvet.
Because on that Chef AJ thing, she says not to juice or blend, which I don't juice, but blending, I thought you were still keeping the fiber intact. So I knew you process it a little bit differently, but still it's better than juicing.
You just need to sip it for a longer period of time.
Which it takes me 2 to 3 hours to drink a smoothie. So I have no problem there.
Then it's okay. I think it's a good thing that you picked up on that. As far as I'm concerned, making a smoothie and blending it, not throwing away the fiber is the key to this. What do you say, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. So you still have the fiber with the smoothie. It's just drink it really slowly and it's fine. It's a good way. I mean, it's ultimately better to chew the food and and get that satisfaction from that because it's calories that still go in pretty quickly, but it's a good way to get extra fruits and vegetables in your diet with the smoothies. But some people have, maybe with the diet with diabetes on insulin or have lots of triglyceride problems, it's probably better to chew the food. Like Dr. Esselstyn doesn't recommend smoothies because of the heart disease thing, because it's a big shock of all that coming in at once. But I think overall for most people, just as long as you sip it over 30 minutes or so, it's still a good healthy choice.
And then I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say really quick, I've been doing this for 6 months now. So I'm really happy that I stuck with it. And I've lost 14 pounds, so that's really exciting. And I met with Lisa a few weeks ago and I was kind of getting stuck and I was like, I just needed some advice. And she's like, well, I think maybe you just need to give it a little more time. And I think she was right because I started losing weight again. But anyways, stick with it.
We're thrilled for you.
Thank you.
And thankful also for Lisa and her help.
Yes, so thankful.
Charlie, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are, Ken.
I've lost my screen. I can't see anybody or myself.
We can see you.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, Ken, go for it.
Chef AJ was talking about juicing fruit. And I had an endocrinologist tell me how terrible that was a few years ago. So I've been careful. But what about vegetables? Like I love carrot juice, beet juice, and others, even turnip juice. But I can also eat the hummus, the leftover fibers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so hummus is actually mashed up beans of some sort or lentil, but you meant the
hummus.
Yeah.
Hummus is chopped up fruit, usually apples.
Oh, the hummus. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you eat the pulp, you're fine if you combine it together, but don't just be drinking the juice. Make sure you get the whole vegetable. If you're going to grind it up, mash it up, eat it together and do it slowly, like you were eating it, like it takes a little time.
Okay. And the other question is, Scott was talking about the 1 hour presentation that we should watch every 3 months or so. What's the name of that? I can find it on the website, but what am I looking for? What's the name of it?
Just Calorie Density by Jeff Novick. So you could also just, have it on the website as I just showed, but if you just went on to YouTube, you could type in the search bar, Calorie Density Jeff Novick.
Jeff Novick.
Novic.
He's one of the best public speakers I've ever seen. Isn't he fun?
He is, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody else have anything to offer or want to say or whatever before we end the meeting this week?
Thank you.
That's kind and nice.
Yeah, I say thank you to everyone that's here. It was great participation.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for all your support. That's it.
Next week
Thank you guys.
Oh yeah, next week I'll be doing nutritional myths and other popular diets. That's a fun one.
You get to say see in the movies.
And again, thank you, Angela, for sharing some more tonight with us. We really enjoyed last week and tonight also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you one and all, and I'll see you in the movies.
And okay. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, shit. He always says, see you in the movies.